turn to the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs. The first text we'll look at is going to be in chapter 18, so you might want to start there. But as we've been doing, we're going to be hopping around a bit as we look at this book topically, thematically. But let me begin by telling you that when I was a little boy, and I don't think I'm at all unique in this, some of y'all might have the same story. But when I was a little boy, my siblings and I were taught to recite and to believe, the following little ditty. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me or harm me. It was, of course, a lie. Right? It's a dirty lie. And I dare say most of you here tonight understand just how egregiously false it is. We know that words can hurt a lot. And so much so that sometimes we just as soon have the sticks and stones. Am I right? That's my experience. Fortunately, God's Word in the book of Proverbs acknowledges the great power and significance of words, and it has a lot to say about them. Indeed, as Kidner in his commentary points out in chapter 6, where we are told about 7 abominable things that God hates, 3 of those have to do with the misuse of words. Isn't that something? So as we look to what wisdom, Proverbs has to convey about words, let us first see what it says about the power of words, which I've already alluded to. The power of words. Look with me at chapter 18 and notice verse 21. 18:21. Just look at the first half of that verse. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Wow. How powerful are words? Very powerful. Life and death is in words. The power to give life, support life, encourage life. The power to end life. That's something.
Oh, I think about someone who talks someone down off of the ledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Or tell somebody something that hurts their feelings so bad they want to go jump off the ledge. Yeah, exactly. Both sides of that. What do you think it is? I think maybe in the examples we just talked about, we already have a clue, but what do you think it is that gives words such power?
Well, we're made in the image of God.
Okay.
And God spoke this world into existence.
So we can see the power of words just in the fact that God uses them to create the world out of nothing. That's an interesting point. Yeah. But let's think about it some more, though. What do you think gives words such power?
Maybe the way they're used.
The way they're used and they're emphasized, yes. That's good. Tone. Oh, yeah. We'll talk more about that. Yeah. Well, I want you to think about that as we go forward. Maybe some of the texts we're going to look at in a moment will help you see. Kidner, the guy I keep quoting, he suggests that the power of words comes from 2 things. 2 things. First of all, their emotional impact, or penetration is the word he uses, but I like the word impact, their emotional impact. Turn back with me to chapter 12, Proverbs 12, and notice verse 18. It says, poverty and shame. I'm sorry, that's the wrong chapter. Chapter 12, verse 18. Is that what I said? Yeah. There is one who speaks rashly, like the thrusts of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. What's the point of that verse? What's that verse telling you, especially the first part? The one who speaks rashly like the thrust, there is one who speaks rashly like a thrust of a sword. Words are like being stuck with a sword. Is that going to hurt, Mary? And somebody who speaks rashly is doing that, right? Rash words, words that you spit out before you think about them, right, usually hurt. They're usually harmful. That's the point that's being made. Of course, the opposite is true too, and that's what the second part of the verse is talking about. But skip on down to verse 25, same chapter, verse 25. Janet, read that for us.
Heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. Yeah.
My translation says anxiety, right? What's your first word in yours?
Heaviness.
Heaviness, right? Yeah, anxiety or heaviness in the heart weighs it down, but notice a good word makes it glad. Words can take somebody who's heavy-hearted and, to speak kind of cheesily, brighten their day, right?
Mine says cheers it up.
Cheers it up. That's good. Flip over to chapter 16 and verse 24. Judy Richmond, how about that? 16:24.
Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones.
Wow, you hear that? Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, right? Like having a jar of honey. That's good, right? And what was the last part of that? They're sweet to the soul. That's what honey is, right? Healing to the bone. Words, good words, can heal. Can heal a broken heart. Right? Exactly. Flip over to chapter 18. Verse 14. Rhonda, how about that? 18:14.
A man's spirit can endure sickness, but who can survive a broken spirit?
I want to focus on the second part of that. As a broken spirit, who can bear it, right? Now, it doesn't mention the words or the tongue specifically in those verses, but I'm pretty sure that the second part of that verse has to do with words. A broken spirit, who can bear it? Some translations say wounded, right? How does a spirit get crushed or wounded? It's usually with words, right? That's the point. So we see that words can have emotional impact on people, either for good or for bad, right? Very good. Flip over to chapter 29. 29. Oliver, how about that? 29 verse 5.
A man who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his steps.
All right. Flattery, that's something you do with words, right? What is flattery? What is that? We say flattery.
Giving someone a compliment you have an ulterior motive, maybe.
Yeah, you don't really mean it necessarily, but yeah, ulterior motive. You're saying something good to them so you can get something out of them, right? And they may not even be true, or even if they are true, it has to do with the motive of the speaker, right? Exactly. And what does flattery do, according to that verse? Spreads a net, right? Which is another word for a trap, right? You're leading that person into danger or error or something like that. Exactly. So words have the power to trap people, which is another kind of hurting, right? All right, flip back to chapter 10. Proverbs 10 and verse 21. Nicholas, how about that? Chapter 10, verse 21.
The lips of the righteous feed many, but ignorant fools die for lack of a heart of wisdom.
All right. So what does it say about the lips there in verse 21?
The lips of the righteous feed many.
The lips of the righteous feed many. How's that? Maybe it's not talking about physical food, although I don't think we can rule that out. Feeding the soul, right? It's probably what it has to do with. Words feed people's souls, help them grow, help them mature, right? But fools die for lack of understanding, right? That's the opposite. All right, how about, that was 10:21, right? How about chapter 11? Verse 9. Zach, how about that? 11:9.
With his mouth, the godless man corrupts his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous will be rescued.
Okay. So what does a mouth do? What does a godless man do with his mouth?
Corrupts people.
Corrupts his neighbor, or my translation says destroys, but it's the same thing, right? Yeah. So again, we see the mouth hurting people, destroying people, tearing people down, right? Words are powerful things, right? So here's the bottom line. Words have the power to change your attitudes, your feelings, your beliefs, and in turn, your life, right? Either for the good or the bad, right? So, one reason words have the power they have is because of their emotional impact. Secondly, and this is something we might overlook if we're not careful, secondly, they have the power they have because of their ability to spread. Their ability to spread. Look at chapter 6. Go back to chapter 6. Chapter 6 and verse 14. Sandra, you want to read that? Chapter 6, verse 14.
Forwardness is in his heart. He devises mischief continually. He soweth discord.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mention the mouth there in mine of your translation, but I want you to notice something there. I'm going to connect this with some other verses in a minute. With perversity, his heart continually devises evil, who spreads strife, right? Strife is animosity, conflict, right? A person spreads conflict. But with that in mind, flip over to chapter 16. 16, and look at verses 27 and 28. A worthless man digs up evil, while his words are like a scorching fire. A perverse man, here's that same phrase, spreads strife. And a slanderer separates intimate friends. You say some words that are not good, right? Some evil words, some malicious words, right? For selfish motives. And somebody else picks it up and spreads it around and says harsh words. And then you get a chain of gossip going and things like that. And pretty soon people are hurt, right? A lot of people are hurt. Back in chapter 6, the word in my translation, I was going to comment on something there and forgot to mention it. But if you go back, in fact, there is a connection to words back in chapter 6. If you look at verse 14, in my translation it says, with perversity of his heart, a person continually devises evil. What did your translation say again, Sandra, on that?
It says, forwardness is in his heart. He devises mischief continually.
Devises mischief. There you go. But in the Hebrew, the word there that's the translated devises is the word sends out. He sends out strife and mischief. And that is probably connected to language, right, or words. Anyway, so all this is bad, right? Words can spread like a fire, right, and turn the world upside down for evil. But you know what? It's not always bad. Flip over to chapter 12. Proverbs 12. Miss Mary, you want to read one? You don't want us? That's okay. No, don't worry. But chapter 12, how about Betty? You want to read one? Chapter 12, verse 14.
A man shall be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the
Recompense, okay.
of a man's hands shall be rendered unto him.
Okay. The whole verse is relevant, of course, but notice the first part. A man will be satisfied with what? Good. With good by what? The fruit of his mouth, or the fruit of his words. Right? So what's the point of that verse? What's that verse telling us? If you speak good words, it's going to be satisfying. It's going to reward you. Right? And that has to mean that other people are going to reward you. Right? Your words will bear fruit in other people's lives, and that will come back to you positively, right? Chapter 10. Flip back to chapter 10. Larry, you want to read chapter 10, verse 11? Chapter 10? Yeah.
The righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence.
All right. So what does the mouth of the righteous do, or what is it? A fountain of life. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Spreads good.
It spreads good. It makes people, I would like to say it makes people's lives better. And I think that the contrast with the second part helps with that, right? The mouth of the wicked conceals violence, right? The mouth of a wicked person is working violence, maybe behind the scenes to hurt people, right? So the opposite of that is the opposite of violence and hurting is helping, okay? Very good. All right, well, chapter 15. Proverbs 15. And Janet, how about back to you? 15:4. 15:4.
A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit.
Okay. I find it interesting that the previous verse we just looked at says that words can be a fountain of life, and now it says tree of life, right? Which takes us back to Genesis, right? At least indirectly takes us back to Genesis and the tree of life, right? So again, the idea is that words can be life-giving. Or on the flip side, they can crush somebody, crush a spirit. Okay? All right, so this is why words have power, because of their emotional impact and the fact that they can spread so easily. What we say to someone or about someone can spread to others for either good or evil, right? That's what we just got through talking about. So, knowing the power of words, what should we do? Careful with what we say. Watch our tongue. Keep a close guard on our tongue, which we get a lot about in the book of James. I wasn't going to take us to James and read it, but read James's letter and what he says about guarding your tongue because of this very thing. Well, we're going to quote that one in a minute. So just hold on. I'm going to come right back to that one.
What about 15:30 there?
Oh, I didn't write that one down, but what does it say?
Bright eyes cheer the heart. Good news strengthens the bones.
Oh, my translation says puts fat on the bones. I like that. Yeah. Good news. Yeah, great. Good news puts fat on the bones. I love it.
Good news makes me hungry.
Yeah. All right, so, yeah.
16:24, did we do? Oh, we did that one.
We probably did.
Okay.
All right, so we looked at the power of words, but words are powerful things, right, as we've just seen. Paradoxically, however, this is going to be strange, Brother Larry, but paradoxically, words can also be weak, extremely weak, in three ways. Kidner says they're weak in three ways. Number one, they're weak because they're no substitute for deeds. We have an expression for this, right? Actions speak louder than words, right? You see? Actions speak louder than words. What does that mean? What does that mean?
If it's made some concrete, you can see them.
Yeah. If people need help, for example.
So,
Yeah.
There's a verse that says, so you see someone needs help, you say, be warmed and filled.
That's in 1 John.
Then you walk away.
That's in 1 John. Exactly right. And I was going to actually use an illustration similar to that. Somebody needs help, and you can help them, right, concretely by giving them some food or some money or whatever they need. But all you do is say, hey, I wish you well. Right? Actions speak louder than words. Right? That's a good illustration of that. Very good. So with this in mind, look at chapter 14. Judy, how about 14? Chapter 14, verse 23.
in all hard work, there's profit, but merely talking about it only brings poverty.
See that? Actions speak louder than words. Right there. Right? Talking about a problem doesn't fix the problem. Right? I see that pipe under our sink that needs plumbing, and I just talk about it and gripe about it. Nothing happens. Right? Wish I could just snap my fingers. All right. They also, not only are they no substitute for deeds, they also cannot alter facts. Sometimes we use words to kind of cover up facts, hide the truth, rationalize things, right? But look with me at chapter 26. Chapter 26. This is a lengthy passage, so let me read it. Verses 23 to 28. Listen to what it says. Like an earthen vessel overlaid with silver dross are burning lips and a wicked heart. He who hates disguises it with his lips. In other words, you hate somebody, but you talk nice to him. Right? But he lays up deceit in his heart, right? When he speaks graciously, do not believe him. For there are 7 abominations in his heart. Though his hatred covers itself with guile, his wickedness will be revealed before the assembly. Sooner or later you're going to find out that he's just talking, right? He who digs a pit will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone, it will come back on him. A lying tongue hates those it crushes, and a flattering mouth works ruin, right? So what are some lessons we can get from those verses? Don't trust a flatterer, right? Don't trust a flatterer. He's covering over facts. Watch out for a lying tongue, right? And don't gossip. That's good. Exactly. We can see a lot more about that, but flip over now to chapter 28. Rhonda, how about 28, 24? 28, 24.
The one who robs his father or mother and says that's no sin is a companion to a man who destroys.
Yeah. Covering up or rationalizing an evil doesn't make it good, right? And it's going to lead to bad consequences regardless, right? That's the point of that verse. All right. Look at chapter 24. Flip back to 24. And Oliver, how about verse 12?
If you say, behold, we did not know this, does not he who weighs the hearts understand, and does not he who guards your soul know, and will not he render to man according to his work?
Okay, what's going on in that verse? When the person who says, see, we did not know this, what's this person actually doing? He's lying, right? He knows about something that he should have gotten involved in to help with, some problem he should have helped solve, some person he should have helped, but he lies and says, I didn't really know about it, right? But there's somebody that knows about it, that knows he knows about it. Who's that? God, right? Does not he who considers it weigh the heart? Right? So you might cover over your omissions, right? By saying you didn't know anything about it, but God's going to hold you accountable for that. This is why we have to always be careful. There are 2 kinds of sins, right? There's sins of commission and sins of omission. Exactly. Kidner says it this way: the strongest excuses will make no impression on the final judge. Right? All right, words are also weak because they cannot compel response. They cannot compel response. A person can choose, if they want to ignore what you say. Right? Think about it. Look at chapter 29 for an illustration on this. 29, verse 19. 29:19. Nicholas, how about that?
A slave will not be corrected by words alone, for though he understands, there will be no answer.
Okay. What's the point of that? What's that verse saying? Especially the first half. If a person is stubborn and doesn't want to learn, with a verbal rebuke, what's left? The rod, right? That's all that's left. So, now, when it talks about a slave, it's not talking about any slave. The implication here is it's talking about a stubborn person who refuses to be corrected verbally, right? So the words roll off him like water off a duck's back, and he keeps on misbehaving, right? Until worse has to happen, right? Until worse has to be done, right? That's the idea. Chapter 17. Flip back to chapter 17. And who was that that just read? That was Nicholas? Zach, how about 17 verse 10? 17:10.
A rebuke goes deeper to one who understands than 100 blows into a fool.
Yeah. So a person that's got understanding, a person that's wise, what's a rebuke, a verbal rebuke going to do for him? It's going to go deep, right? It's going to cut deep, and it means it's going to change him, right? He's going to respond the right way. But not everybody. 100 blows into a fool, right? The fool doesn't respond to the words. The wise person does. So you got the flip side of that idea, right? Now, of course, evil words have the same weakness, right? We're talking about good words not having their proper effect because people choose not to listen. But evil words can also have the same weakness. We rightly balk, right, at the sticks and stones saying, right? But why? Why do we balk at the sticks and stones saying? Well, it's because generally, we believe that words really do hurt despite that saying, right? Because we generally care what people say to us, right? Or perhaps put it better, we care what people whose opinions matter to us say to us, right? Isn't that right? But the flip side, and the very small kernel of truth that's in the sticks and stones saying, is that we are able to avoid being adversely affected by the words of someone whose opinion we don't care about, right? Or when we just know that what they're saying is wrong, right? Okay? Somebody says something mean to us. It hurts us because we care what that person thinks. But if we don't care what that person thinks, or if we know that what they're saying is false, it won't destroy us. Can't destroy us, right? Let me close this up by talking to you now about words at their best. Words at their best. When words are used well, when they are good or doing good, they will have certain characteristics. First of all, they'll be honest. When you're using words good, they'll be honest words. Look back at chapter 16. Proverbs 16. Miss Sandra, would you read chapter 16, verse 13?
Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right.
Okay. Notice how it talks about righteous lips and the person that speaks right? They're the delight of kings, right? When kings get reports from their servants about what's going on in the kingdom and their honest words, that helps the king, right? He's glad to get the honest news, right? Chapter 24. Chapter 24. Verses 24 through 26. 24 through 26. Let me read that. He who says to the wicked, "You are righteous," peoples will curse him, nations will abhor him. But to those who rebuke the wicked will be delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. Right? What's the point of those verses? Tell a wicked person you're righteous, that's a lie, right? That's not going to do him or you any good. But if you give a rebuke to the wicked, that will be a delight, we hope, to that person, right? And a good blessing will come upon them. Honest words are good words. Secondly, when you're using words well, they'll be honest. Secondly, they'll be few. when you're using words well, they'll be few. I love this. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Miss Betty, how about chapter 17, verse 28?
Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding.
Yeah. Hear those words? Even a fool, when he holds his tongue on those rare occasions, is thought to be wise. Right? Closing your lips, keeping your mouth shut, is a mark of prudence, right? Wisdom. Very good. Flip back to chapter 10. Chapter 10, verse 14. Wise men store up knowledge, but with the mouth of the foolish, ruin is at hand. A wise person stores up his knowledge. The idea is to use it at the appropriate time. It's a time to speak and a time not to speak, right? But the fool just talks and talks. Chapter 11, verses 12 and 13. He who despises his neighbor lacks sense. Now, what does that mean? Well, you get the meaning of it with the second part. But a man of understanding keeps silent. The person that despises his neighbor lacks sense in the sense that he just talks all the time. When you talk to your neighbor all the time and don't shut up, that means you hate him. Don't just hate it when people just won't ever stop talking? Hope I'm not stepping on any toes. All right. Was that chapter 11? Okay. Oh, I didn't read verse 13 though, did I? He who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets. But he who is trustworthy, what?
Keeps a confidence.
Or conceals a matter. Very good. All right, one more on that. Chapter 13. 13 verse 3. The one who guards his mouth preserves his life. Sometimes keeping your mouth shut is going to help you. Can even save your life. This is probably why if you're arrested by the police and accused of a crime, your lawyer tells you don't say anything. Right? Don't talk. The wise man is the man of few words and the man who knows when to keep quiet. Right? So good words are honest words, few words, and thirdly, they'll be calm. Calm words. This is my favorite. Look at just a couple of verses on this, but look at chapter 17, verse 27. 17, verse 27. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Do I have some other translations out there of that second part? He says a cool spirit, right?
Mine says,
Cool head.
an excellent spirit.
An excellent spirit, or a cool head, or something like that, yeah. Notice again the emphasis on restraining the tongue in the first part of that, but here it's connected with keeping your cool, right? The best verse on this, the very best one that you should memorize, is chapter 15, verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. You want to quell a situation or keep violence from breaking out? You want to keep people from escalating in their anger, right? Speak softly. Right. Chapter 25. Chapter 25, verse 15. By forbearance, that means patience, a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue breaks the bone. What's that mean? Soft tongue breaks the bone. Breaking a bone doesn't sound like a good thing, but I think in this context it's supposed to be a good thing, right?
Maybe
Yeah.
break through the bone to get to your heart.
That's good. I like that. breaking through a hard heart to get at them and help them change their ways, right? Exactly. Very good. All right. Lastly, when you're using words well, if you're using words to do good, then they'll be apt. A-P-T, apt. Right? That is, the right words at the right time. Right? The right words at the right time. Right there, back in, I should have told you to keep your finger in chapter 15. But back to 15 and verse 23. It says, a man has joy in an apt answer. And how delightful is a timely word. Right? The right word at the right time brings joy to a person. And, yeah, go ahead.
Is there one with golden apples?
That may be the one I'm fixing to read.
Okay.
I don't know that. I remember reading something about that. Yeah. But look at chapter 25 was the last one I was going to read. This may or may not be the one you're talking about. Chapter 25, verse 11.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, that's it. I thought it was in here. Why don't you read it, Rhonda?
A word spoken at the right time is like gold apples on a silver tray.
Which is a good thing. Right? And a word spoken in right is a word spoken in right circumstances, right? Yeah. Exactly. Having said all this about words at their best, a question arises. Here's a question we should all be asking right now. How does one gain the wisdom to use words well? Proverbs itself gives us the answer. There are two ways. First way is study. Study. Chapter 15, verse 28. 15:28. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. See, an evil person, a wicked person, just spews out words without thinking, but a wise person ponders what he's going to say, right? He thinks about it. This connects with our idea earlier about restraining your tongue and being slow to speak, but I think it also implies studying, right? Thinking about what you're going to say. Secondly, not only studying, but character. How do you gain the wisdom? Or how do you learn how to use words well? You develop character. Look at chapter 10. Chapter 10, verse 20. The tongue of the righteous is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. I want you to notice the connection there between the tongue and the heart, right? There's a parallel being made between the tongue and the heart. That the tongue is an expression of what's in your heart, is the point being made here. And if you have a right kind of heart, you have a right kind of character, a good character, a virtuous character, your words are going to be like silver. That means valuable, as opposed to the opposite. Flip all the way back to chapter 4. Boy, we hadn't gone this far back just today, have we? Chapter 4, verse 23. This doesn't talk about words, but I know it applies. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it, from your heart, flows the springs of life. Right? Didn't Jesus teach us this too, Nicholas? Matthew chapter 12, verse 34. All right, let's look at that real quick. This will be the last verse we look at. Matthew chapter 12, verse 34. You brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak what's good? Here's the important part for our purposes. For the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. Or from the heart, the mouth speaks. Right? You want to be a person who knows how to use words well, to do good and not evil, to heal and not hurt, to build up rather than tear down, then pray for and seek the fruit of the Holy Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, self-control, and so on. Right? And ask God to build in you a virtuous Christian character. Doesn't come overnight. But if you want it and you pray for it and you seek it, you'll have it. And of course, it starts with the study of God's Word, His sanctifying Word. Do you have any last minute questions or comments? You didn't know Book of Proverbs has so many words on words.